back, literary slummers, to another episode of Hate Read. I'm Em.
And I'm Anna. Every fortnight here on Hate Read, one of us normally challenges the other to read a book we think she will hate. But for this fortnight, we're doing a special rewind episode in which Em is revisiting an author that she has hated in the past. So this fortnight, Em challenged, and I say challenged because I love this book, challenged me to read Hogfather by Terry Pratchett. So first things first, Em, why don't you tell our audience why you, for some reason, crazy lady, hates Terry Pratchett?
Because I was a fucking idiot, I guess.
Yes! You dumb girl.
I realized about halfway through this book, this episode is gonna suck so hard because A, this book was fantastic, so I can't even rag on it, and B, even if I try to be funny, I'm not gonna be as funny as this fucking book, so I shot myself straight in the foot with this one. Y'all should just turn this fucking podcast off and go read Terry Pratchett.
And now you can listen to us for the next 60 minutes or so gush about this book.
Yeah, like legit. Okay, so in the past, I had attempted to read Terry Pratchett many times, and this was kind of like our college years.
Yes, I feel like I tried to force this series on you.
Yes, you definitely did. And I had picked up, like, I own probably 6 or 7 Terry Pratchett books just from, like, because it was like, he's like one of those authors that everyone's like, he's so good, you'll love him. Mm-hmm. And so I tried, like, I tried. I picked up multiple books by him. I, like, would read a few chapters, and I just, like, could not finish a book by him. And I think it's literally, I was just too dumb, because even now, like, I feel like a lot of the jokes, I was like, I know this is probably funny, but I don't get it. But, like, I don't know if I was just, like, picking up ones that were very, like, because, like I said, even with this one, there were some parts where I was kind of like, okay, I definitely feel like this is referencing an earlier book or something like that, because obviously, like, Discworld is 8 billion books long, but it's not really, like, a series. I guess they're just, like, interconnected stories, but some of them follow other, I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely a series, but you can read it in any order. There's, like, suggested reading guides, and I can link one when we air this episode. I could either link it on Twitter in the show notes or both or whatever. But also, like, there's suggested reading guides for if you want to follow particular storylines, but you can read them in any order.
And I think that kind of level of chaos might have been what sort of, like, made this a difficult series for me to get into, because I don't know if I've talked about this before on the show, but I am, like, a completionist when it comes to media. Like, I will read a series in the space of, like, 3 days because I just need to be done with the whole series. And that's not really a thing you can or should do with this series, because, again, there's, like, 8 million books and they don't necessarily follow a linear timeline in terms of, like, when they were published. So, yeah, I think that kind of just overwhelmed me a lot.
And with this particular series as well, I would stress, as someone who has loved this series, I've been reading them since I was, like, 12 or 13 years old, do not start with the first 2 books. They're good, but they're not representative of the series as a whole, and they do not compare to the rest of the series either. Like, the rest of the series is so good, but don't start with the first 2 books, or else you'll kind of be a little bit disappointed.
And I think the ones that I tried to start with, because I do think I tried to read the first one at one point, because I was like, no, I need to read it from the beginning, and that wasn't good. And then I tried to read, on your suggestion, the one that's based, or, like, spoofing Phantom of the Opera.
The Phantom of the Opera one.
Yeah, which is called something else.
Masquerade.
Yeah, that one. And then Mort, which is in this kind of section of the series. Yeah, because this is also one of the death books, I believe.
I think it's the 3rd book in the series, actually. Yeah.
And it was really fucking good. I know I've said before on this podcast that I cry super easily at stuff, and I, like, teared up at least 6 times during this dumb fucking book. It was infuriating. Like, all of them, but especially anytime death was, like, seeing how humanity was, like, unfair and, like, trying to fix it. I was just like, oh my god, the little match girl scene. That was the first one, and it just went downhill from there in terms of my tear ducts.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, and I actually haven't read this book in probably about 10 years. Is one I just haven't like picked up again for whatever reason. And so it was kind of like reading it brand new again for me. But yeah, I forgot how much of it was like kind of focused on this idea of death, coming to terms with like the spirit of Christmas and like what it means to believe in Christmas and that kind of thing. And I was just like, oh, it's so cute. Like, this is what I want every time I watch a Christmas romantic comedy. I want it to star death and for him to become a nice man.
Yeah, it was really, like, honestly, I know I said this jokingly, but honestly, if you haven't read the book and it seems like anything that might be up your alley, for real, like, just stop listening to us and go read it because it's really good. And again, this is kind of like,
yeah.
You know, I went into this thinking, you know, okay, I'm reading this for hate read. I need to come up with things to spoof. I need to come up with some giggles and such. And I did not do that at all. I took one note.
Oh, what was your one note?
It was LOL sick burn.
I think what I find so I think what I find so charming about this series is that it takes care of the making fun of itself for itself. Like, it does not take itself seriously at all. Like, there's no pretension here. It's just like, this is a goofy fantasy series where we're ripping on literally everything in real life, but also ourselves. So,
right, which I think is also why, for getting back to me crying about it, in general, I think it's a lot easier to pull off, like, heartfelt, like, those really, like, touching moments when it is a comedy, because you kind of don't expect that, versus, like, I feel like a lot of times when stuff is taking itself more seriously and then there's, like, a really sad thing that happens, it's like, yeah, but you're, like, trying to make me sad. It feels more contrived. So, like, kind of like, I feel like I cry a lot more at comedy shows than, that sounds insane. This is making me sound like a crazy person, which I am, but not for this reason. But no, like, you know, like any episode of like Scrubs where something traumatic happens and everyone's, you know, the rabies episode, like, go look that up if you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But like, that is way more likely to make me cry than, like, I'm trying to think, even like an hour-long drama, you know, like,
yeah,
it's just,
or fucking like the Jurassic Bark episode of Futurama.
right, exactly. And that just, like, it feels more earned because, like, you're going into this and it's a comedy and it's like gut punching you, you know.
Yes.
And there was just a lot of that for me, because this, like, book was also very surprisingly woke, like,
I was glad you thought so, because I was really worried. I was like, oh, this book was written in 1996.
right,
it's a male author writing a fantasy book, like,
I will
I was a
say
little nervous going back into it.
Yeah, there weren't enough female characters. I will ding it on that, because essentially
the Wizards are an all-male group of,
right. Don't justify it.
There are female music users or magic users. They're just not wizards.
They're just not in this book. No, but I mean, there's Susan, yes, and there's
and that's it.
The
Twyla
Tooth
and
Fairy
Violet.
helper, Twyla and Violet. But there's just a lot more manly man characters of various.
Oh my! I have so many suggestions for you to where to go after reading this book. You should definitely read Men at Arms, because it deals with the fact that a woman has joined the Night Watch. It's the first woman to join the Night Watch, but also she's a and so it's like, what are they being discriminating about? No. Let's go.
But yeah, there was a lot of, like, good, like, stuff about income inequality and, like, but yeah, I guess and that's the thing, I don't super want to go, like, beat by beat with this book, because I honestly don't want to spoil it for other people. And again,
and
what I was
it's
trying to say
chaotic,
earlier,
like you said, it's
yes, there's a lot going on. And what I was kind of got sidetracked from earlier, like, a lot of times we say stuff about how, you know, like, we hate a book. That doesn't mean everyone would hate the book. And I think this just kind of goes to show, like, even our tastes obviously like change. Like I'm not making this up. I literally tried to read Terry Pratchett stuff at least 5 times, and
it really boggled my mind
could
when
not
you didn't
get
like
into
it the first time.
Yeah, so like even like me as a, you know, late 20s person, very different from me as like a late teenage like reader. There's just different stuff that I like and things like that. And I'm sure there are people out there who have read Terry Pratchett and don't like his stuff. But honestly, though, I don't know who those people are because I've literally never heard anything but good things about him, which is why it was kind of weird that I didn't like him for so long.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess we should kind of talk a little bit about the like what exactly this book is about, since we're just kind of like heaping praise upon it.
I could do that for a full hour.
I know, right? But that's kind of,
it wouldn't be good to listen
it's
to.
not, no. So this is gonna be kind of more like, I guess, kind of more like our Hobbit synopsis, where we're not gonna go quite as in depth, I think. So we're just gonna kind of give you guys the broad strokes and hopefully come up with a few funny things to say about this book. But honestly, probably not. I mean, there's one good burn. There's one good burn I can give you guys. And that's really pretty much it for me. So hopefully Anna's got a few things locked and loaded. Nope. Okay, great.
Michael was like, no, we were talking about, because I was just reading the book and I wasn't taking any notes as I was reading it. And so Michael was like, well, how are you going to approach this episode of Hate Read? And I was like, I don't know, because I literally cannot be critical of Terry Pratchett at all. Like, I have nothing bad to say. I can't read this critically because I'm not. And so, I don't know.
We failed you. We failed you, people, our listeners.
Yeah. This is the opposite of Hate Read today. This is love.
You come to us. You come to us for snarky commentary. And all we're going to be doing is blowing smoke up Terry Pratchett's ass all night.
You know, it's a Christmas miracle. We've lost our rage and we're instead filled with love.
Okay, so this book is about a whole bunch of stuff, but essentially the main plot is this woman named Susan, who is the granddaughter of Death, the anthropomorphized Death, who wants to be normal and live a normal life and work as a governess, but she is having some trouble with that because she has a lot of crazy powers from being the granddaughter of Death. So she can do some cool shit. She can like see all of the various anthropomorphized people who come around, and all of the boogeymen.
She remembers the future.
She remembers the future. She can like walk through doors and shit. All sorts of fun stuff. So she's pretty OP, but not in an annoying way. I'm trying to think how to get back into this. Okay, so Anna just took us on a big aside that I'm going to have to put at the end of the episode to explain a beep that you heard earlier in the episode. So this is going to be abrupt, but we're going back in.
I just really got scared.
I don't even know what the fuck I was saying before.
She has a lot of cool powers. That's what
you got really scared that people are going to be so mad at you for spoiling this book that's been out for like 2 decades. Even and the author is dead at this point. And even though what we routinely do on this podcast is spoil fucking books.
Fine, it's fine. She's a
No, I'm beeping out every one of those because you're so worried about it. You're real scared.
Let me make sure that is the spoiler. Anyway.
Oh my god, kill me. Alright, so... Fuck, this episode is so bad.
Oh my god.
So,
that might not even be the book.
Oh my god, Anna. Could you come correct next time?
It is.
Please.
Pretty sure it is. Anyway. I really prepared hard for this episode.
You didn't. That's a lie. Honestly, this entire podcast is just like an exercise in me slowly showing people how little you prepare for this podcast that we do.
And yet I make it look so good? Question mark. I'm gonna eat my ice cream. Talk about this book.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. I'm going to continue being a professional podcaster.
Professional amateur podcaster.
A novice professional amateur podcaster. Anyway.
So here's the thing.
Don't you use my own words against me. Okay. So here's the thing.
Susan has powers.
Susan has powers.
Her grandpa is dead.
Her grandpappy is death. So then there's like these bits that are from like Death's kind of dealio where he is, well, okay, no. So this is a difficult book to synopsize, to explain because...
To summarize.
Just that one. We're falling apart. We're falling apart.
Okay.
This is a difficult book.
Game pace.
This is a difficult book to summarize because, like, there's, like, kind of 18 different things going on. And they all relate to the plot, but it's another one of those where, like, stuff that's happening, you don't really understand why it's happening until later, so we're gonna butcher this, is what I'm gonna say. Okay, so there's this guy who's the head of the assassins who's, like, he gets a visit from these people. No, not people. These creatures, I guess, who are called beings. Yes, that's a good one. Beings. Who are just like floaty cloaks with no faces, and they are called the Auditors, and they want him to kill a being for them, and that being is the Hogfather, the titular Hogfather. So
Santa Claus.
Yeah, except not, because this is Discworld. So where things are slightly different, but not entirely.
In a slightly medieval way.
You know, in a slightly medieval way, but with computers. But they're run by ants.
And the mouse is an actual mouse.
Yes, it's all very whimsical.
But very good. Let's not joke. It was very good.
So the assassin dude gives the job to one of his assassin peeps, who is named Mr. Teatime, which is spelled like tea time, and he hates when people call him Mr. Tea Time because it is pronounced Teatime, I think.
That's how I read it. Teatime.
And he is a psychopath, ? Like
I think definitely.
And I'm not saying that in like a, haha, it's crazy, it's so funny. I mean, like, he's like a psychopath or sociopath. I'm not really sure. Yeah, he's.
They said he saw the world differently in a way that, like, made him feel like every life was meaningless and just, what is the word? When you just throw something away.
Garbage man.
Life was garbage man.
I thought you meant the word for a person who just.
No, like when you could just toss it out.
He's a bad boy. He's a very bad boy.
He's a bad guy.
So he sets out to kill the Hogfather on the orders of these gray cloaks with nothing under the cloak. Anyway, so that's going on. He gets together a gang of roustabouts in order to help him, and they seem like generally nice little thieves and murderers, who are just kind of, you know... Medium Dave, yeah. And Banjo, who I suspect is going to have his own book at some point in this series.
Banjo?
Yeah. Does he come up later?
Think so.
Nope. Okay,
Maybe I'm
cool.
wrong, though.
It seemed there were quite a few things that I was like, I bet this is a book later. But I don't know. Anyways. So that's one thing that's going on. Susan comes across, and then the other thing that's going on is Death has figured out that this is what's happening. So he puts a big old plan in motion in order to protect the Hogfather, essentially. And part A of this plan is to dress up as the Hogfather and go across the countryside visiting families and doing Hogfatherly things in order to make sure that they still believe in the Hogfather.
Yes.
So we get a lot of nice little scenes that are all very humorous or very touching, in which he tries to understand Christmas and practices his ho ho ho.
Ho, ho, ho. Yes, he does it like a really obvious, like he leaves sooty footprints places on purpose, and like drinks the sherry and eats the pork pies and all of that, and just makes it super obvious. Which is like, I didn't question this until now, but like they leave out pork pies for a being who like takes the shape of a
Yes, it's pretty messed up.
and expect him to eat them.
Yeah. And in one incarnation is a pig.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Like he was just a pig at one point. Like, so that's pretty fucked up.
Enjoy your cannibalism, Santa.
And if nothing else, he like drives around in a sleigh pulled by pigs. So like it would kind of be like if we left Santa like reindeer meat.
Reindeer pie.
Which like it's pretty fucked up. So Death is doing this. His second part of the plan is to kind of reverse psychology Susan into getting involved in all this and going off on the journey that Susan goes on, which he does by showing up to the house of the children that she is the nanny for. The governess for, sorry, my bad. And acting like a little bit off. So she's like, oh crap, gotta put grandpa in a home now, essentially is her reaction.
Pretty much, yeah. Because
she's
if he
like,
stops being death, then she has to become death.
Yeah, so except she's also very much like, I don't really know how you would do that to the personification of death. But that is her concern, that he's like going off his rocker and that she's gonna have to deal with it. So she gets dragged into this. She goes to the Hogfather's castle?
Mm-hmm, the Castle of Bones or something.
Yeah, and finds Bilius, who is the recently brought into existence god of hangovers. And he is a mess.
As you can imagine.
And she takes him to the
Unseen
Wizard University.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let me amaze you with all my nerdy Discworld trivia. Actually, it's called the Unseen.
Well, actually, I think you'll find it's called the Unseen University. The Wizard University is not a feature in Terry Pratchett's Discworld. So they go there in order to find a cure for his hangovers so that he can, like, explain to her what's going on. There's a bunch of back and forth. I will straight up say the stuff with the wizards was my least favorite part of the book, just because it felt very much like I should understand who all these characters were and like what their foibles were, but like I also didn't care because they were all basically the same character.
Yeah, they did get a little bit muddled, I will say. And I think like the only reason it couldn't have all been one character is because they do have like their own storylines where they are fleshed out a little bit more, but
and
not
I mean, like,
much. Like they're all pretty much like,
right,
the same, except for Ponder.
And it was like humorous at times, but also like a lot of times I felt like there was a part of the joke I was missing because I couldn't keep straight who the wizards were making fun of. But that is where my sick burn came in. So let me pull that up because that's my one note.
Excellent. Yeah, they're like kind of the Three Stooges of the Discworld.
Yeah, except there was like possibly 20 of them, but also maybe only 2. I couldn't tell you. And it didn't help that they did that fantasy thing where they refer to everyone by titles.
Yes.
But then I was like, wait, are they using names sometimes? Yes, they are. But also sometimes titles. And I did not pay enough. Again, this is not a knock on Terry Pratchett. This is a knock on me because I'm a big dumb. But sometimes I skim, and I don't think I should have done that ever in this book. Because, like, something would happen that seemed... And then, like, 2 paragraphs later, they'd be, like, referencing it, but, like, I didn't know what was happening. So there was a lot of, like, me being like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck is going on right now, but I'm loving it.
But sure.
Got it. I got it. Yeah, it's... they're talking about... So they find out that they, like, figure out, essentially, that there's an excess of belief because people can only believe in so many things at once.
Mm-hmm.
And now something, they don't know what, but it's the Hogfather being down and out for the count, has caused there to be like belief space, I guess, freed up in people's minds. So because of that, the kind of like joking things they say about like, oh, what if there was a creature that was stealing socks from the washing machine are like being pulled into existence. And at one point they make a joke about the hair loss fairy, and they say, no sense in being bashful about going bald, said Red Collie evenly. Anyway, you know what they say about bald men, Dean. Yes, they say, look at him, he's got no hair, said the lecturer in recent runes. The dean had been annoying him lately. Which I highlighted. That was the only thing in this book that I thought was worth highlighting, to say,
Sick burn.
LOL, sick burn. It was a good one.
Yeah. Gonna need some ice for that
so-
wicked burn.
So they figure out that that's what's going on with the whole
new gods.
situation, that there's this excess of belief, and they go. Oh shit! Susan and Bilius go to. No, wait. Stop. No, okay. So, I got it. So they nope, I don't.
Susan and Billy
Violet?
yeah.
Violet. They figure out the Violet thing somehow. How do they come to Violet? It's something about teeth.
Yes.
They figure out the teeth
Where do
thing.
they find the teeth? They go, there's the Raven, and they go to Beers. They go to talk to Igor, right? And Igor points them to Violet.
Well, they go no. They go to Beers to talk to Igor because they're trying to find Violet's home address. But they already know that they need to find Violet and that she would be at Beers. But they don't.
Because didn't one
Is
of
it
them
just
have
the
like a pocket
teeth?
full of
Is
teeth?
it just teeth?
He had a pocket
Is
full
it
of
teeth?
teeth.
Is it maybe
It's
teeth? Pocket. I got a pocket full of teeth.
I took his teeth.
So, yeah, sure, we're gonna go with that. So at some point, there's a pocket full of teeth, and they figure out Tooth Fairy from this.
Yeah.
So Violet is one of the girls who works for the Tooth Fairy in essentially a multi-level marketing scheme. Yeah, so she has to go like deliver the teeth and get the money, and like there's like a charge for the use of her ladder and this and that, and it's all a very clever commentary on like Maybelline, or not Maybelline, on Mary Kay.
Maybelline's fine.
Yeah, Maybelline's fine. No shade to Maybelline. Mary Kay though.
And their pink Cadillacs.
Pink Cadillacs in there. I don't know anything else about Mary Kay.
Makeup
It's all
and
unique
Edward
now.
Scissor hands. Or is that Avon? I don't know. Anyway.
Maybe same difference. Ding dong. That's something, right?
It's a doorbell.
One of them has a slogan that's like ding dong. I think it's Avon. I think I'm thinking Avon.
Ding dong, Avon
like,
here.
ding dong,
Would you like
Avon.
some makeup? Avon, come at us for your next advertising campaign. We got you. Ding dong.
No.
It's Avon.
No. No. We do not support MLMs. Okay. So,
Ding dong.
so stop it. Ding dong.
So anyway.
Ding dong. Pocket full of teeth. Ding dong. Pocket full of teeth.
This is quickly
That was
devolving.
nothing. That was nothing.
Oh my god.
Oh. Okay, so I'm crying. So they find Violet, who is the Avon lady for Pocket Full of Teeth, and she is. No, they don't find her. They go to her house and they find a
missing.
list of names of the people who lost their teeth, and she's supposed to go give them money. And one of them is in like the murder house at Murderville, and they're like, that's not a place for a child because it's Banjo, because earlier, Teotime punched him in the fucking face to get his tooth.
Yes.
Which I did not understand for the longest time, that was what that whole bit was about.
Yeah, I think I didn't get it until the end where he started cleaning all the teeth up, and I was like, oh.
Where he's like, hey, remember that time I punched that guy for his
Here's
tooth?
why.
Here's why, because of the teeth. I needed a pocket full of them.
Ding dong.
Ding dong, pocket full of teeth. So,
I hope this is funny to no one but us.
we're laughing alone here, but we're having fun.
Yes. As long as we're together, we'll never be alone.
No, gross. I hate it.
Ding dong. Okay. Anyway, so teeth. They find. So they go hunting for Violet.
So they find Violet, they find the list. We're past this, we're at the list. They find the banjo address. They go to the banjo address. And then things happen.
They
They go to the banjo address, and then they go to the library at one point, and they look up, whatever, it doesn't matter. Cause and effect doesn't matter. They go to the library.
The wizards go to the library to wait for the Hogfather.
No, they go to that library, and Susan goes to the death library.
Oh,
Multiple
she goes to Death's
libraries.
library because she says, I can find anybody anywhere.
Yes.
So she goes and finds out where Violet is.
Yes.
And it's describing this other dimension where they've taken
Yes.
Violet.
So they go to there. And it's like a child's painting. How did they figure out how to get there? I can't remember. I skimmed it.
I can't remember. I just read it today. See, the problem with the Terry Pratchett books, and it's not a problem because I like it when I'm reading it, but then when I go back and think about it, he writes the scenes like
You don't
they're
question
just short
it. You don't
vignettes.
question
They're
it.
not broken up in
Yeah.
chapters. Yeah, and so everything is happening at once, and so you'll get like 2 pages from Susan's point of view, and then 2 or 3 pages from the wizard's point of view, and then we'll go to Teotime, and then we'll go back to Susan, and then it's Death and what's his name? I can't think of his Albert. Death and Albert, and then it'll be like a small aside of characters that we'll not see for the rest of the book, and then we'll come back to. So it's just very chaotic.
Yeah.
But it's hard to piece together in what order things happened.
Yes. But so things happen, whatever. They get to the magical land that's like a child's painting because it's like all fucked up and the tree looks like fucking weird. And this was like a cool scene because I was like, this is a good point. Like, because essentially he's like, all like, okay, this is going to sound like I'm high right now, and I'm not. But like where he's like, oh yeah, all kids make this same drawing, and isn't that weird? And I was like, yeah, it is fucking weird, Terry Pratchett. You're right.
It is weird.
It is fucking weird. He was like describing shit. I'm like, yeah, I did that. That is how I drew flowers.
That's still how I draw flowers.
How I draw flowers. I don't understand horizon lines.
I'm not good at drawing.
I don't know how to draw. Have you seen our cover art? Terry Pratchett.
Terry Pratchett, how did you know?
My cover art is just a house with 4 windows and a door. You're right, Terry Pratchett.
My trees are just brown and green lollipops, Terry Pratchett. I don't know.
They all have red apples, Terry Pratchett.
Because everyone knows apples are red and they all...
Ding dong, bucket full of Avon.
Ding dong.
Bucket full of teeth. Fucking hell.
Oh.
So,
This episode's a mess, I'm sorry.
this episode is a disaster zone. All right.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Hogswatch.
Oh, okay. So they go there, and Teotime and his band of rogues are also there at the same time, but that's not super clear at first. And then when I figured it out, I was like, again, mind blown, and I was like, oh no, I'm just really stupid. So they're trying to break into this safe, and then downstairs, Susan's there with Bilious.
I think it's just a room.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. They're breaking it. Yeah, you right.
They're breaking into a
You
room
right.
that has 7 locks
It's a
on
room.
the door.
You right. I literally just this moment realized that when Susan goes into that room at the end, that's because they broke the locks and she got into that room. I thought there was just a room that was separate from all of this and also a safe. Because I am
had a lot
so
going
dumb.
on.
So they're trying to get into this room with a bunch of locks, and Teotime is kind of killing people at this point who are useless to him. And then also there's like these childhood spooks that are coming up for these big bad boys, like the cupboard the wardrobe that has a face on it. That was like what the one guy was scared of when he was a kid. And they're all kind of like reverting to acting like children.
Because they're in a child's painting.
Yeah. So Susan also finds that downstairs there's just this big pile of teeth. And that they brought them down from the upstairs where they were like all collected and labeled and like kept very safely. And she's like, this is so weird. Like, I don't know why the Tooth Fairy would do this. This doesn't seem to have like any purpose. Like, I don't get it.
Ding dong, big pile of teeth.
Ding dong, big old pile of teeth. So she gets into some confrontations with the bad guys, and they get dispatched kind of one by one, as you know, is sort of typical of these sort of romps, and eventually comes face to face with Tiatime. And how does she get rid of him? Oh, it's her and Medium Dave and Banjo, and she kind of convinces the other two to help her, but then eventually Dave gets killed in the kerfuffle. Well, not killed, he gets moved elsewhere because kids don't have a concept of death, so he gets taken elsewhere, but then presumably
Ejected
dies
from the world.
Presumably dies once he gets there, as happens to the other guys. And then they like push Teotime off a balcony or something. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, there was like it's a huge tower, and they're up at the top, and she pushes him off the ledge, and he tumbles down to the base of the tower,
And he also gets
and poops out into the real
transported
world.
elsewhere, because that's what happens. That's what children thinks happen when you die. So Susan goes into the room, not the safe that they were trying to open, and finds in there a boogeyman. And we have experienced boogeymen earlier in the book in a wonderful setup to this scene. But he's like, nah, I'm the original one that everyone was really scared of. And then he became the Tooth Fairy because he liked protecting children, I guess. And also has power over them because of ancient magic that like ties teeth and bones and blood and stuff to the person. So
there's like this theme of like old gods getting new jobs once they become irrelevant.
Yeah, because people weren't scared of him anymore, because he used to be like really scary because we didn't understand what dark was, and then
we got
science and did understand dark. And it's not, dark is just no light, so that's okay. You just put more light. So, we figured that one out. And so he became the Tooth Fairy and had this whole operation. We did so good. So he said, ding dong, big ol' teeth.
Let there be light.
Let there be teeth. And then he dies. Ish. But then I am doing so horribly at explaining this book. Go read the fucking book, you troglodytes.
Just do yourself a favor and read this book.
I'm sorry for calling you troglodytes. I didn't mean it. So
she did. Ding dong, you're a troglodyte.
Ding dong. Pocket full of trogs. So Susan suggests that Banjo essentially take over as the Tooth Fairy, and they leave, and all seems to be well. She gets back to her... No, her grandfather comes and picks her up and is like, hey, this was my plan the whole time. And she's like, cool. Was I maybe going to die, though? And he was like, yeah, no, probably not. It was probably fine. Which, good grandparenting. And they go, he's like, but we still have to save the Hogfather. So there's a scene where they go, and it's like something that was described earlier in the book as like one of the ancient traditions of where the Hogfather came from, of like a pig being chased by dogs and shit. Not and shit, like there's sentient shit.
Dogs and big piles of dog poo chase the Hogfather across
real bad
the plain
because the piggy
and
wants
push him over a cliff.
The piggy wants to play in the dog shit, but does not want the dogs. So she has to go like ride the Hogfather to safety, and then Death
literally ride him because he is a boar.
Yeah, he's a piggy at this point. Then Death like pops out of a snowman towards the end and is like, fuck you, dogs. And the dogs are actually like the hooded guys. And they're like, oh, fuck you, Death. You aren't supposed to interfere. And he's like, but you first. And so he wins.
And then they got fucked somehow.
Yeah, like, fuck those guys. And then the Hogfather dies, but then, like, undies and is like, it's fine, I'm fine, and doesn't say anything and just flies away on his sleigh full of pigs. And it's beautiful and touching. And we all learn about the true meaning of Christmas.
And also because, like, they were like, the Hogfather can't die for real because the Hogfather makes the sun rise. And so, like, not only is he the, like, personification of Christmas, but also he has taken on this job of making the sunrise.
Yeah, but then...
Possibly.
But no, I think that was one of his earlier, like, that was his ancient attribute, was that it was part of the sunrise ceremony thing.
I see. I flip-flopped that in my head. That makes more sense.
And Susan is like, hey, no, but the sun would have still risen. And Death is like, nah. And she's like, yes, it would have. And he's like, no, for real, no. And she's like, well, what would have happened then? And he's like, well, a big old ball of gas would have risen and it wouldn't be the sun, essentially. So, like, he's... The point is essentially, and this isn't funny, sorry, this is a comedy podcast, this isn't funny, though. This is just very serious and touching, that, like, things can still happen in, like, the scientific sense, but it wouldn't have had the same meaning that we as humans give it. So, in the sense of, like, would the world still keep spinning if the Hogfather had died? Yes. But in the sense of, like, would it have a purpose? Like, would it have the same meaning? Would it still be as beautiful and touching and wonderful? Like, no. So, like, again, my dumbass is over here tearing up on my fucking couch 4 hours before this recording because of this stupid goddamn book. So then Susan goes back to her charges, and there's one final confrontation with Teotime, and everything turns out okay. And then there's a lot of montages of happy Christmas time. Happy Hogwatch times for everyone. It was great. It was great. Y'all should read it.
The end.
The end. So yeah, what was your silver lining for this book?
My silver lining. Well, I loved it. I love this experience. This wasn't even like homework for me. This was just a fun time. No, my silver lining though, well, I was kind of thinking of like, maybe I should do the opposite because we all knew I was going to go into this liking it. So I think, my unsilvered lining was, there is a scene in the book that was like kind of questionable.
Your golden interior.
Yes.
Or no, your
What's the opposite
copper
of silver?
interior. Copper, I guess. It's lower on the it's still good though. What's a garbage metal? Mercury? Because it's like not even solid? I don't know. Tweet at us. Let us know. What's the most garbage metal?
What's the opposite of a silver lining?
Yeah.
So I guess like we're gonna go with, just for as filler, like if you took the flood fill tool on paint but filled it with poop. That's what this is, not a silver lining.
Yeah.
There is like one scene in the book where so one of the gods that gets created is Miss Cheerful.
I know. Wait, no, I don't know. Actually, go ahead. I thought you were gonna say something else entirely. Go ahead.
One of the gods that's created is Miss Cheerful, and I guess as children in Discworld, they were told that you have to, Miss Cheerful will come and make you go play outside and be good kids or whatever. So she is incarnated, and wants to play games with the wizards and makes them like go do hide and seek and draw and juggle and whatever. Anyway, one of the wizards, because there are no women, as we've talked about, there's no women in Unseen Academy. They've sent all of the maids home, so it's just a bunch of old men in a castle. One of them like ends up alone with Miss Cheerful and like is kind of like feeding her wine and telling her it's not alcoholic, and then is like going.
It's a baby, it's cold outside situation.
Yeah, it wasn't great, and so that kind of like made me go ew rereading this book, and it wasn't like it didn't ruin the whole thing for me, but it definitely took me out of it, and I was like, ugh, yuck, this was bad.
Well, but I would say I think that the end. Because in the montage of happy Christmas scenes, what ends up with him is that she disappears and he doesn't get to fuck her. So, like, I think we're supposed... I think like, she no longer exists, which, but he doesn't get to, finish his creepy ministrations.
Yeah.
So maybe like we're supposed to read that as like I don't think Terry Pratchett was condoning his actions.
No. I think though, but like having it as a joke,
was a
it's
little.
just like I'm kind of tired about joking about that.
Yeah,
'cause-
and that was actually what I thought you were gonna say was the joke where Bilius hops up behind Susan on the horse or whatever, and she's like, "Oh, grab on." "Oh, but not there. You need to grab my waist." Like,
Oh,
and it's
that
like,
one,
"Oh,
too.
he grabbed her boobies, didn't he? Because he doesn't know better. Because he was just made today.
He's just 1 day old.
He's just a little baby." But that again, I was like, "Oh." Sexual assault joke, but again, at the same time, it wasn't like Susan was super creeped out by it because she obviously
No, yeah,
understood
she
that
wasn't.
He was just
Yeah.
so it's all good. The women are fine and or disappeared forever and no longer exist. So there's no real victims here.
What was your silver lining?
Oh, it was a good fucking book, man.
Yay!
whole thing. So, okay, silver lining. So which character do you relate to the most? And this I had a little bit of trouble with because as I kind of said it was like really prevalent with the wizards. There is to some level a sort of caricaturism
Yes.
to
Charcuterie board?
Yeah, there's a certain charcuterie board to these characters where they are very like drawn on stereotypes of the high fantasy
Yes.
thing. So like they do kind of that's not necessarily a bad thing. We talked about this before. That's not necessarily a bad thing, and I don't think it's a bad thing here, but it is a little bit harder to like really be like, yeah, I see myself in this fully fleshed out character, because they're not necessarily that, except maybe like Susan and Death, but I didn't particularly relate to either of those.
I think that mine was Bloody Stupid Johnson, because everything I touch turns to poo-poo.
Nice.
He's a inventor in the book, and everything he makes turns out to be kind of like disaster, but in a mechanized weapon sort of way. So his invention because he shows up throughout the series, Bloody Stupid Johnson's inventions. But the one in the book that is most prominent is this bathroom that he's invented. That seems like the perfect bathroom, except that there are some modifications that make it quite painful.
Yeah.
So that's me.
I think I said probably not Death or Susan. I think probably, and I can't remember the name right now. What's the name of the guy who designs the computer? Hex.
Ponder Stibbins.
Yeah, him. I think he was probably the closest to, because he just kind of
like
seemed
Ponder.
like he's just kind of like he was kind of the straight man in all the madcapery, I think. Where he's just trying to get by, man. He's just trying to get by and do his little thing that he cares about, and everybody keeps drawing him into like all this other bull crap, and he just wants to play with his computer. And like, same, man. I just want to play with my computer. Also Hex, because like Hex was a smartass, and I appreciate that on a spiritual level.
Yes. And then I liked when he started to believe in the Hogfather and Hogwatch, and he wrote out a Christmas list. I want to know what was on his, or Hogswatch list. I want to know what was on his list.
Well, it was a
besides
teddy bear, wasn't it? Oh, beside the teddy bear.
It was a very long
Yeah.
list, I think.
Probably
Jeff said.
a lot of teddy bears.
Anyway.
Just a lot of them.
I hope so.
I hope so. Okay, so what book, I guess not really rather be reading, but what will you read after this? Or what has this inspired you to read? Or what has this reminded you of that you might suggest to our listeners?
Well, obviously, the rest of the Discworld series.
Okay, fair.
I have a really huge urge to go back and reread them now. Particularly, my favorite storylines in Discworld are the Night Watch, which we saw a little bit with Corporal Nobby Knobs and his name is escaping me, but the religious guy.
Yeah.
I can't remember what his name is now. It starts with a V or something. But I don't know. I really like the Night Watch stories the best. So if you're reading this and you aren't familiar with Discworld series, I would recommend you pick up Guards, which is, I think it might be the first book involving the Night Watch, but it has to do with dragons that have come to take roost in Ankh-Morpork, and is very good. And you'll get to meet Commander Samuel Vimes, and he's one of the big names in the series. It's very good. How about you? Christmas books or anything?
Well, no, I'm not a big Christmas book. Well, I don't know if I've mentioned either of these authors, but these were the two that I kind of kept thinking. Well, three if you count Neil Gaiman, because that was like obviously American Gods was one that I was thinking of a lot when I was reading this book. But kind of in the same vein as this, where it is like that sort of like really immersive fantasy world, but also very humorous. I was thinking either Christopher Moore, who I think I've talked about on this podcast before, but he's got a couple Christmas themed books. And then also Jasper...
Or the death-themed one.
Or the death-themed one, yeah. Or Jasper Fforde, who wrote the Thursday Next series and The Last Dragon Slayer and Shades of Grey, which is not the Shades of Grey that we read on this podcast, or the Shades of Grey that is the famous one, but a different one. And those are all very good, so...
And which is... Like, super needs a sequel. Can we just talk, real talk for a second here? I'm going to use my tiny podcast audience to pressure Jasper Fforde into writing the sequel to Shades of Grey, because
Doesn't it exist?
I don't think so.
I thought it did. I'm Googling. Yeah, because it's a series.
Yeah, it's a series, but there's no sequel.
What are you doing, Jasper?
And, like, for the record, Jasper Fforde, the first book came out in 2009. And he's got two... This is weird. Goodreads has a second book listed as untitled, and then a third book with the title of Gordini Protocols.
Yeah, yeah. It seems that he kind of stalled out on that one. But yeah, so if anybody wants to like pressure Jasper Fforde into writing this book, because that's the best way to get a book done, as we all know from seeing Martin struggle through, the next fucking Game of Thrones
or book. Patrick Rothfuss.
yeah. All these guys. That's what we need, is to just keep yelling at these authors until they give us what we want.
What we deserve.
What we deserve as readers. No, in case this is clear, I feel like this is a good time to mention this. In case it's not clear, never, ever, 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 ever at an author about this podcast, please. Because even if we don't like the author, like, they do not deserve... Like, no matter how shitty they are.
They don't need to know we exist.
Even Beatrice Sparks, dead Beatrice Sparks, who I think is a terrible person, like, on a spiritual level. I think that the books that she wrote are bad and, like, had bad consequences. Like, don't... And she's dead, so also, like, it wouldn't hurt her to find out. But if for some reason you get, like, a Ouija board out and are trying to contact Beatrice Sparks, please do not tell her about this podcast, because, like, that's just rude. Like, don't link authors to negative reviews of their work. We're not saying this because we're like chicken shit. Like, honestly, if an author comes across this organically and is like, hey, I think what you said is really unfair, like, you can come on the podcast and talk to us, or you can like just shoot us an email and we will happily, talk to you about I don't know, like, why you would bother doing that, but you can do it. But yeah, if you are listening to this and you're like, oh, this is really funny that you hate this book, I'm going to tell the author you hate that. That's mean to the author. Don't do that. So yeah, don't actually bother Jasper Fforde, please, is what I'm trying to say. We're saying it as a joke. Don't really do it. I think that that's important to, like, kind of delineate in these times.
Never take any orders from us seriously.
Yeah,
unless
never.
It's to rate our podcast with
that's
5-star
the only
review
one
on
we
iTunes.
actually want you to do. On that bummer of a note, that wraps it up for this fortnight. So, okay, like, it's Christmas time, and I know this was like this ended up being a really fun read, and it's technically my turn to do a challenge, but like, I don't really want to do something too terrible. Wait, what's that in the distance?
Ho, 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 bitches! That's right, it's me, Santa Claus, and I've been checking my list, and it seems you two have been decidedly naughty. Mocking these poor, hard-working authors, you've earned yourselves an entire sack full of coal. Unfortunately, the coal industry isn't quite as robust as it used to be, so I've had to come up with some alternatives. And I've got a very special present for you two. Go ahead, reach into those stockings.
Santa, how could you?
Santa, I trusted you. I trusted you with the Christmas spirit, and look what you've done. You've made it into Christmas shoes.
That's right. I'm challenging both of you to read the novelization of the worst Christmas song of all time. It's The Christmas Shoes by Donna Valeri, because nothing says Christmas like cancer.
Santa, you fucking dick.
You've brought this on yourselves. Now, if you'll excuse me, it's been a real banner year for naughtiness, and I've got several more punishments to dish out. If I want to be done before February, Santa, away! Ho, ho, ho.
Pocket full of shoes.
No, ding dong, not the Christmas shoes.
All right, so I guess we have that to look forward to next fortnight. Before we wrap things up entirely, we have something to announce.
Yeah.
I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also had a piece of listener mail this fortnight. We also had a piece of listener mail this fortnight sent to us from someone who would choose to go by the name True Nerd. Hey, Hate Readcast. I really enjoyed listening to your latest episode on Ready Player One. I was struck by how bad the writing was from some of the quotes. I really questioned Mr. Klein's nerd cred after hearing one of his metaphors for masturbation, knocking a few protons off the old hydrogen atom. First, this is the worst analogy for self-pleasure I have ever read. Second, a hydrogen atom is just one proton, so knocking a few protons off a hydrogen atom is impossible. Sincerely, True Nerd. Thank you, True Nerd, for the nerdy email. Much appreciated. And also, like, while we're recording, I just want to mention, since this podcast episode was already all over the place, did you see how, like, Tumblr is, like, not...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Tumblr's no dicks now, y'all.
Yes!
No dicks on Tumblr.
So where am I going to go for all of my
And
naughty
also
Santa
only-
Claus porn?
Only female presenting nipples.
Ugh, so weird. So weird.
Or no female presenting nipples. So
yes,
weird.
unless
Yes, I
it
did
has
see
to do
that.
with breastfeeding, which...
Yeah. Or top surgery, which that's nice, I guess. But also, like, I don't know, whatever. Just free the nip, whatevs.
Yeah, but, like, isn't, like, all of Tumblr... And maybe this is, like, very tangentially related to the podcast, since we like to look at the fan fiction so often for the rewind episodes. Isn't that, like, half of what Tumblr does is they, like, make the naughty stuff?
Here's the thing. I haven't been on Tumblr in a long time because I used to run a fairly prominent Crazy Ex-Girlfriend GIF blog on Tumblr, and then I accidentally locked myself out of my account and can never get back on. So I've been real salty about that for, like, over a year and, like, have just refused to even touch Tumblr. So I don't really know what's going on with Tumblr, but yes, I do feel like that's going to really limit, like, the number of people on Tumblr because them Tumblrinos, they horny.
Mm-hmm. And I just don't understand whose idea this was. Yahoo? Isn't that who owns Tumblr now? Yahoo?
Yeah, that seems like the sort of, that tracks. That actually tracks. That makes a lot of sense. Anyway, this is nothing. This has nothing to do with anything.
I know. I just wanted to mention it on air because I'm a little sad about it.
We wanted to make sure that all of you who are listening to this episode hear this breaking news that you're going to hear in a week. So you've definitely heard it from somewhere else.
You heard it here first, folks.
You heard it here 18th. After all of the people on Twitter and probably Instagram. Mm-hmm. Maybe your grandmother on Facebook. I don't know.
Or your
Might have
grandmother on
gotten there at this
Tumblr.
point.
I don't judge, man.
Yeah, maybe she's really upset. Trying to share all those pictures of your granddad's wing wang, you know.
Ooh, yeah, that's the fuck yeah vintage wing wang Tumblr.
They're really gonna take a hit from this. Okay, so exciting announcement for those of you who have held on through this discussion of Tumblr wing wangs. Starting November, nope, that's last month, December 25th, which is also
That's literally
known as
Christmas Day. Like,
Shut up.
You could have just said Christmas
I
Day.
fucked it up so bad.
You know what? We're gonna have to keep everything in because this episode is
This episode's short, so it's fine. Y'all are getting this fresh, uncut episode. I really wish I hadn't said uncut right after that discussion of wing wangs.
Oh.
It took my mind to an uncomfortable place.
Yeah.
I'm not happy. Okay, so December 25th, also known as Christmas, we are going to be launching a new weekly podcast. Oh, yes. So, if you listened to this and thought, man, I really like these two talking about Christmassy things, get buckled up because we are launching a new podcast called 12 Months of Christmas, in which we, as scientific Christmas rom-com experts, will be trying to definitively decide what the best Christmas rom-com is. We will be covering everything from Netflix to Hallmark to Lifetime, and maybe even some actual movies from actual movie studios thrown in, like Love Actually.
I totally forgot those existed. Like, I was like, Googling,
yeah, they do. There are
Christmas
actual
rom-coms. I was like, oh, there's movies.
Mm-hmm.
There's movies.
There's real ones.
Yeah, they went to
There's
theaters.
real ones. People paid for them specifically.
There's one with Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah, I know, right? So we're going to get into all of that, and we're going to be trying to decide using scientific principles, which if you have listened to us, you know we don't have those.
They're the most scientific of principles.
The most scientific of principles. We'll be trying to figure out what the best Christmas rom-com of all time is, and that is, again, launching December 25th. We will get it on iTunes as soon as we possibly can. We're
And
also
it's called 12
should
Months
be
of
on
Christmas.
all the other little. Yes, 12 Months of Christmas. Until it is, we'll announce on here. We'll try not to talk about it all the time because I know that's annoying if you don't want to listen to it. But we will announce on here when it is officially like kind of out and about on iTunes and stuff like that. But if you do want to follow it specifically, we do have a Twitter for it. It is at 12 Months on Twitter, or at 12 Months Podcast on Twitter. If you want to tweet at us about the shittiest of medals, you can do so by tweeting at HateReadCast on Twitter or emailing us, hatereadcast@gmail.com.
As always, thank you to Ben Cope for the use of our theme song. You can check out his YouTube channel in our show notes below. Also, if you are listening to us and have not yet subscribed, you should on whatever app you use for your podcast aggregation. And if it is iTunes, you should definitely leave us a 5-star review. We definitely earned it this fortnight, I think.
Ding dong, 5 stars.
Ding dong 5-star review service.
Oh gosh, is there anything else we need to say, or can we in the words of?
In the words of. I don't have an in the words of, but I could pick
I don't
one.
have an in the words of either. In the words of me right now, go read this book. That's it. I'm not, there's no jokes. We're done with jokes. Everything's over. This is done.
This is done. Hold on. In the words of Terry Pratchett, real children do not go hoppity skip unless they are on drugs. I just realized. Sorry, this should be cut from the episode, but you might want to cut the spoiler I said earlier for the book Men at Arms because I think I gave away what the joke was.
I mean, but here's the thing, though. I don't know what the spoiler is because I haven't read Men at Arms, so I don't know which part of that was a spoiler.
The whole thing, just like cut it, because I said that they are discriminating her because she's a woman, but then it's not because she's a woman. That's the joke.
All right.
I mean, she's a woman.
This episode is already gonna be real low on content, Anna.
Well, you could just cut the part where I say.
I'll just bleep it out.
Yeah, there you go. I'm pretty sure that's the spoiler. Well, because again, I read the books out of order, and so like I already knew from the books I read, and then I went back and sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So
I just don't want to ruin anyone's experience.